In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a program that reads a text file and puts the values of the file into an array and writes the content to a list box. The program will then process the array and find the highest value in the array. First thing, I'm going to show you a text file. So this is my text file called values.txt. So the values are 10, 50, 30, 40, and 20. I purposely put the 50 out of order so that 50 is not the highest is not the last entry, although the first entry is the lowest value. So you need to create a text file called values.txt, and then we need to copy and paste this into the project folder. So I've already done most of this work, so I'm just showing you what I did. So you can copy, and then we're going to navigate to the folder that we want to place this in. So I'm going to use the Windows Explorer, click on Documents, go to, in my case, it's going to be Visual Studio 2013. I'm sorry, not 2013, it's going to be 2012. Okay, here we go. This folder called Projects. Now, I created a program in Windows Forms Application 3, so I created a project called Windows Forms Application 3, so that's what I'm going to use it. So I double click here, and I double click this folder. I find the bin folder. I find the debug folder. Now I've already pasted the text file here, as you can see, values, so I don't need to do it, but this is where I would paste it. So this is where I pasted it already. So then in Visual Studio, I have created this form that has a list box, and the name of this list box is list box numbers. It has this label called label highest. Now the properties of label highest, I can move this over, okay. I changed several properties of the label label called label highest. So one of the things I did was I set the auto size to false. So by default it's true, so I changed it to false. Then I added a border style fixed single, which your choices are none and fixed 3D. By default, labels don't have borders, so I chose fixed single. And then I deleted the text that would have said label highest. So to do that, I find the text property, and right now it's empty, so I deleted whatever was there, which would be like label 4 or something like that, or label highest, because that's what the label is. I changed the text align property to middle center. So I select middle center, and then I added the read file button. Now I want to create a method that's going to find the highest value in a array. So I've already done this, so I want to view the code window, so I click view code, and what you do is, let me make this a little bit bigger. What you do is you find this method called public form1, and this is a method, which later on in another lesson I'll explain what this really means. But this is a method. If you look at it, it looks like the body of a method. So So below this curly brace, I press enter, and then I type this code right here that says private double max double box the array. So this is the header of a method called max, which returns a double, and when you call this method you have to pass an array of doubles. So the first thing I do is I create a variable called highest, and it's a double. Then I initialize highest to the first element of the array that I'm sending it, which is, for this purpose, it's called the array. So the array sub 0 is that value is assigned to the variable highest. So that's our starting point. So then we're assuming that the first entry in the array has the highest value. But we need to check to make sure to verify if that's true or not. So we use a for loop to see if there's anything higher in the array. So here's my for loop. So I'm starting the counter at 1. My counter variable is I. And while while I is less than the array.length, the size of the array, and my increment. So I'm going to compare each element of the array, and if the array sub I is greater than highest, then that's going to be the new value of highest. So highest is assigned the array sub I. So as you're processing the array, if you find a value higher than what you call the highest value, you're going to assign that. And then once you process the for loop, you're going to return the value of highest. So return highest. So that's the method. It's called max. So then I'm going to look back at my form. I'm going to double click the read file button. And I've already made this code. So first thing I do is I'm going to create an array called numbers. And I'm going to initialize it to 5. If you remember, the file that we were looking at have five components. Another thing I need to mention for the stream reader, if you don't have a using directive, you cannot use the stream reader object. So if you're going to use a file, you need to put this using system.io. Without that, you get an error when you try to create a stream reader object. So stream reader ifile. ifile is going to be assigned a text file, and I've already shown you values.txt, that text file. So this allows me to open the text file. I'm going to create a counter variable called count and start it at 0. I'm going to create a string variable called str, and I'm going to initialize it to an empty string. Now the next thing I'm going to do is that I am going to process the file, that file that I opened back up here. So while ifile.end of stream is false, while I don't find the end of the stream, while I don't find the end of the file, I'm going to process that file. So on the right side, I'm going to read a line. And notice that the object is ifile, so ifile.readLine. So it reads a line, and it assigns that line to string, to the str. Then I need to convert str to a number. So since I'm dealing with doubles, I'm going to double.parse str, converting str to a number. And I'm going to assign that value to number sub count. So remember, count started at 0. And then I increment count plus plus. So as long as I find a value, I keep incrementing the counter. As long as I find something in the file, I keep adding. Once I don't find anything in the file, then it gets out of this loop. So once I've what this does, it populates the array. So once I've done that, then I want to display that array, the content of that array, into my list box. So in this case, I'm using a for each loop. Now, since the array is an array of double, I say double, and then I have a dummy variable name, so val, in the array called numbers. So then my list box is called list box numbers, items, and I'm going to add value. So val. Val takes the value of each component of the array one by one, so it's going to populate my list box. I need to close my file, so I do ifile.close. And then create a variable here called max. Notice it's max with a small m, because otherwise it'd get confused. If I typed it up with a uppercase M, it'll get confused. Okay, so you're talking about this function, or you're talking about the variable? So that's why max lowercase, max uppercase. So then notice that this is a call to that function called max that I created up here, and I'm passing the array I called numbers. So it's going to figure out which is the highest value in that array and assign it to this variable called max. Then I want to display that variable I want to display that value in the label highest label. Okay, the text. So max has to be converted to a string because we're dealing with a label. So max.toString is going to be assigned to the text of label highest. So when we run this program, when I click read file, it's going to read the file and do what I said. It's going to show the values of the file in the list box, and it's going to show you the value of the highest value right here in this label. So click read file. And that is how you can process an array by reading a file and putting the content of the file into an array, and then displaying the content of the array in a list box, and processing and finding the highest value.